Let's be honest, we don't know anything about our elected officials. They're hidden behind curated social media profiles and press releases to the point that they often seem barely human. We're here to break down those barriers and get under the hood of their real character. Our guest today is United States Senator Bob Menendez. My name is Scott Salmon, and this is Politically Driven. So I have to say, this is one of, if not the most surreal experiences of my life. Picking up a sitting United States Senator at an IHOP, just so we can drive around town and just chat for a while. So I gotta address the elephant in the room by asking you what you think or what you thought of IHOP changing its name temporarily to the International House of Burgers.
It was terrifying. As someone who is an IHOP fanatic, even though I don't eat the pancakes when I go to IHOP, I'd turn into one. If people say, I met the senator for breakfast, my friends, my closest friends will say, where'd you meet him? And either they'll say the certain diner or they'll say IHOP, and then they believe that they met me.
That's how you know. That's like the secret code. Do you have a standard order? Is something you always get?
Yeah, I like Ed's over medium with corned beef hash.
Okay. Interesting.
Or if in a diner, then I want Taylor ham.
Oh, and that answers my next question, which is going to be Taylor ham or pork roll.
Taylor ham.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, it depends what part of the state I'm in.
That's true. That's true. That's true. That's true. Yeah, I can imagine you get rolled pretty hard if you go into South Jersey and you call it.
No pun intended.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Well, I grew up in this tenement building right by the school, the elementary school I went to school with, and buildings had some work on it from when I was growing up there. And a lot of hard-working people, but who were, at the lower end of the economic scale. And but great people with great families. The fire escape was often the place to catch the breeze.
Right.
And the corner bodega was when you got to have a treat or a little piece of candy, and if your mom gave you something for that, things were not easy at the time. My mom was really my hero because she was the driving force to leave Cuba, where my then brother and sister, I was born here, but my family, the rest of my family is all from Cuba, and she was the driving force. My father didn't want to leave. And she said, no, I don't want to stay here and have my kids grow up. And I think about courage, because no job, no understanding the language,
did she speak it
nobody
at all?
waiting, nobody waiting here for them. And so, a lot of courage to uplift yourself, uproot yourself and start all over again. This is the building I lived on over here.
Oh, this is it?
This one over here, 4607.
So you're right next to the school.
Yeah,
then.
right next to the school.
Oh, wow, okay. And that's the fire escape.
Yeah, those are the fire escapes. This is the bodega. So my mother taught me a lot. Part of it was that courage to start all over again, search for freedom and a better life. And then, she was a seamstress in the factories here in Hudson County, and she was so good at what she did. She worked long, hard hours as a seamstress, and she was so good that the owners of the place said, oh no, get off the machine and help others and sort of like help manage the floor. Yeah. Except that there were two guy managers on the floor, and they got paid as managers. She just got paid as a seamstress. She never got paid as a manager. And so it taught me a lot about equal pay for equal work at that time. And then she would come home after a long day of working in the factories in Hudson County, and she would ultimately cook and clean. And then after all of that, she'd say to me, Bobby, sit here and read in Spanish. She'd say, read your homework to me. And I'd say, read my homework to you. And I'd say, you don't understand English, Mom. In Spanish, I would say, Mama, you don't understand English. You're not going to understand what I'm saying. She goes, that's what you think. Sit here and read your homework.
Mothers always
taught me about the value of education, right?
She,
after a long, hard day, she was willing to sit there and listen to something she didn't understand, just to impress upon me the importance of our schoolwork. So, and then she would invite people from the building, especially on the weekend, to have dinner with us. And I would say to her, Mama,
just random people
from the building, other families she knew. So why are you inviting people over? There's not really enough to go around. And she'd say to me, well, son, we have more than they do. And for so long as we do, we're going to invite them. And it taught me about a sense of community and giving to others. So my mom, growing up in that building, on Hudson Avenue, my mom taught me so many things that I care about, that I fight for today. Equal pay for equal work, the importance of education, the value of a sense of community. So what got me involved in public life, I was a senior in high school. As a matter of fact, I think if we go up the next block, we can pass by the high school.
Okay.
Yeah. If we go up here, I was told that because of my grades and my activities, I could be in the senior honors program, but I'd have to cough up $200 for the books. My parents
$200. I imagine back then that was
a lot of money.
I mean, it's not nothing now, but I imagine back then, yeah.
And as I said, my parents were poor. We didn't have $200 for the books, and I couldn't understand for the life of me if I had the ability and the grades, but not the money. I'd be barred from being in the honors program.
Right.
So I created such a ruckus that they gave me the books, told me to shut up, and put me in the honors program. But I didn't feel right about it because I had friends who had the ability and the grades, and like me, didn't have the money, but unlike me, didn't say anything. They didn't get in, and so that led me to ultimately go and start a petition drive to change the school board from an appointed board whose policies, I felt didn't give me the education I deserved or my colleagues deserved, and that petition drive I conducted at the age of 19. Long hot summer, got thousands of signatures with a group of my friends, put the petition on the ballot, got the referendum passed at 19, and ran for the first school board elections in my hometown. It was after that there was an article to answer your questions. This is the high school that I went to.
Oh, wow.
It's no longer a high school now it's a middle school.
Okay.
But Union Hill. But it was after that that when I became the youngest elected school board member at the time in the state's history, that the local paper came and said, what was it like running for the school board? And what do you ultimately want to be? And I said, I want to be a United States Senator.
Why a senator? Because there's obviously so many other positions. You could have said president. You could have said governor.
Yeah,
I'm curious what it was about senator that stuck out to you.
Some of the great stories of people in the Senate who made a real difference, and some of the stories in John Kennedy's Profiles in Courage book, of people who chose a moment in time on something that they maybe risked everything, but they changed the course of events. And that's what drives me. That's what's driven me for the 44 years, is being able to change the course of events. I remember still some of the passages. I think it was the preface of the book. And in whatever arena of life one meets the challenge of courage, no matter the sacrifice you face, if you follow your conscience, the loss of your friends, your fortune, your contentment, even the esteem of your fellow man, each man must decide for himself the course he will follow. And in those stories lies, and that was sort of like the preface of the book. It always stuck with me, and then the stories were pretty powerful.
What was your parents' reaction to you getting into politics?
My mother wasn't all that hepped up about it. She was proud, but by the same token, when you leave a country because the government doesn't work, you have your own views about what government is like. So she was apprehensive, I guess, probably.
Yeah.
Proud in one respect, apprehensive in another. Didn't really know if this is what I should be doing, but no one would believe this now, but I was terrified to get in front of a group of people and speak. Really? And so I was a good student. I was an honor student, but I was told in my senior year that you had to take speech.
Okay.
As in not speech like speech therapy, but speech to give.
Like public speaking.
Public speaking, extemporaneous speaking, poetry, reciting, all that type of stuff. And I said, oh, no. I'm not taking the speech class.
Right.
And my counselor at school said, no, you have to take the speech class. I said, no, I'm not taking the speech class. Anyway, we're going back and forth. Bottom line is I got the speech class because I didn't have the final word in the deal. So I would prepare for the speech class, whatever you had to write, whatever you had to do, but I wouldn't get up and do the recitation. Right. So I'll never forget the teacher, Gail Harper. She kept me one day after class, and she said to me, I see that you prepare your work, but you know, in this class, it's not just that you prepare the written assignments, you
Right.
have to do
You actually
you have to do the
speech.
oral presentations, and I can't get you to get up. And I said, well, you know, I'm sorry, I just can't do it. And she said, well, I'm going to tell you something. It's either that you do it or you're going to fail. And of course, failure to going home to my mother, who I talked to you about,
Yeah.
was not an option.
Right.
And so and to her credit, she would stay after school for several weeks, just building up a sense of confidence for me. So if I would get up in front of her, the room was, everybody had gone, the day was over, I would get in front of her and I would read and I would do it and whatnot. And then she would say, well, you should use this syntax and this and that and all that type of stuff. Anyhow, and so I finally broke in the classroom and did it, and all my fellow students were like, oh my God, he finally speaks. He can speak.
It was 1972. You were 19 years old. I've heard that the person that you ran against, he was a member of the church. He was beloved by all. First of all, do you remember what his name is?
Yeah, Reverend Meiskens was his name.
He was an actual reverend.
Yeah.
It wasn't just, okay, I thought it was like a parishioner or something.
No.
Like that.
No. It was a Reverend Meiskens. And, you know, I wanted to file, once we won the referendum and the school board elections were being established, there were staggered terms, 3, 2, and 1.
Okay.
So I said, you know, if I'm going to run for this, I might as well run for the longest term.
Right.
He filed for the longest term, too.
Sure.
So it was like, oh my God.
I have to go off against someone? Oh, man.
I mean, a little difficult. So
Yeah, really.
Anyhow, but I won that election, and so it was, you know, it was interesting because once the filing was over, you don't know until the filing who's filing, right?
Right,
So
right.
once the filing was over, I said, oh my God, I can't run against a priest, but, you know, but it worked out.
Yeah, really
It
did.
worked out. This is one of the places that I had one of the best jobs I ever had, which is the tennis courts over there.
Yeah.
When I graduated from high school, before I started college, I was teaching tennis on the public courts. I was the thinnest I've ever been. I had the best tan I ever had. And then the ladies from this high-rise used to come down with their coolers and take the tennis lessons, and they'd have lemonade or iced tea.
Right.
It was a great summer. And,
That was the best summer.
Yeah, it was a great summer. It was
That's
a
funny.
great job. But anyhow, took a city on the verge of bankruptcy. We turned it around economically. We built this daycare, which is award-winning, a daycare that went from taking care of young children and then having grandmothers who were retired but had a lifetime of knowledge and experience, and turned them into certified daycare workers, one of the first in the nation, and then took mothers who might have been on welfare and did job training. So it was an intergenerational program.
Sure.
It was an award-winning one. So that was one of our big successes. Redoing the Little League field here that had been closed for years and looked like horrible.
Right.
Couldn't even call it a sand lot. It was just lots of strewn.
Right.
Rebuilt that, so there was recreation. Started rebuilding our schools. Created one of the first fiber optically networked schools at that time, before the
Right.
internet was what it was today in terms of Wi-Fi and whatnot. That President Clinton and President Gore, both Vice President Gore, came to visit, which was a big thing. So we did a lot. I think that the problem with Union City is that it's landlocked. So it's the rateable base mix. It's hard.
Right.
And so I would have liked to have.
You want to conquer one of the surrounding towns? Invade them, take them over, get access to the water.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
Be able to deploy the
around here,
navies.
that's dangerous to even suggest. One of the great accomplishments I had in the legislature, and it also told me that sometimes even good ideas take time to
Right.
make happen. So
that's good. Yeah.
we had a terrible set of cases here with the Indian community, where Indian Americans were being beaten up by a group they called themselves the Dot Busters, and they were going
Jesus.
after Indian Americans who
God.
wore a bindi on their forehead, and for no reason other than they were biased against them. And so the community came to see me. I was a state assemblyman at the time, and they said, look, we believed in you, we acknowledged you, but we're being hurt and we're not getting help. And then, so of course I called the prosecutor's office and whatnot, but I started researching the law, and I saw that in New Jersey, if you commit a bias crime against you painted a swastika in a synagogue, or burned a cross or something like that. That when you defaced properties based on a bias, there was a crime for it, a penalty for it. But that if you committed a crime against someone out of bias, there was no enhanced penalty for it. So I created and was the author of the state's first bias crime law, which said that if you commit a crime against someone because of their race, religion, ethnic origin, or sexual orientation, which at that time was very progressive at the time, you would face, if convicted, a higher penalty. And basically saying we can't erase hatred out of anybody's heart, but we can send a societal message that it's not acceptable.
Right.
But that took me, what I thought was a pretty good idea, and I thought would have broad support. It took me 3 years.
Really?
To finally get it. Jim Florio signed it he was the governor that signed it into law, and it was the state's first bias crime law, and one of the first in the nation. So it also taught me that sometimes even good ideas and well-intentioned legislation is going to take time. Ted Kennedy was exactly that. Even though he was a lion of the Senate and came from a storied family, but he was the nicest average guy. So in fact, when I first got appointed, I said, I call people by their title at that time. I know them as well. Senator, like to sit with you, learn how to achieve success here in the Senate. I know the House, but this is a different institution. Bob, come on up. Come to my hideaway. A hideaway is a little place that in the Capitol where everybody's got a small office, so that if there are votes going on, they can still do work out there. So come up to my office. His was like a museum. He had the rudder of his brother, President Kennedy's sailboat. And all these pictures and all this stuff, and then, come on, let's have a drink. It's like, have a drink? It's a little early for that. But of course I said, yes, sure, absolutely.
When Ted Kennedy asks you to drink, you drink.
And he's pouring, so I'm not going to say no. Anyhow, but he was just so magnanimous and so natural and so like, okay, it's Ted. It's not... Ted Kennedy, the senator. It was Ted.
Do you remember what your first coherent thought was after it was made official?
I think it's wow. It really happened.
Yeah.
It was, that it sort of like a lifetime dream, right? And that it was realized at that moment after, already a fair number of years of public service. It was like a moment of saying, you know what? This is in America, dreams can come true.
Yeah.